Just a quick heads up before we start. This is an older clip, but the conversation is still extremely relevant today because the same arguments and double standards are still everywhere in political media. In this segment, the amazing Lucas turns Charlie Kirk's own style of argument right back on him during a debate with Piers Morgan and the panel, and the reaction is complete chaos. The moment Lucas starts applying their logic back at them, the entire panel begins to unravel and the hypocrisy becomes impossible to ignore. After we watch the full segment, I'll give you my thoughts because there is definitely a lot to unpack here. Also, before we jump in, drop a comment and let me know where in the world you're watching from right now. I always love seeing how far this community reaches, so let me know your city or country down below. All right, let's get into it.
Titled Charlie Kirk versus Bullet. Can one bullet to the neck outsmart one conservative? Well, that was a short watch. Number 2 is a mocked-up promotion poster called Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods and hashtagged both Charlie Kirk and his widow. And the third was an image of a sunrise titled God Works in Mysterious Ways with the hashtag Charlie Kirk killing and praying hands as an emoji. And you're laughing as I show these. Why do you find this funny?
Well, let me just say that I actually am a big advocate for dark humor. And I happen to have gotten a bit of a taste of that over the last, I don't know, maybe decade or so when it came to the right and their memes of George Floyd, happy birthday being sober for 5 years. When they came to their memes of Breonna Taylor, when it came to their memes of Trayvon Martin, the Trayvon challenge, right? When it came to their memes of Tamir Rice. So I don't know what the issue is. I think I'm engaging in the freedom of speech that the right has been advocating for these last 10 years and mocking and making light of Black death, something that Charlie Kirk himself did time and time again. As a matter of fact, I would argue that if Charlie Kirk, instead of focusing his time on Black culture and Black on Black crime, if he had spent a modicum of his time focusing on the white youth, that perhaps he would still be with us today.
Are you pleased he's dead?
No, absolutely not.
So how did you feel about his murder?
I don't think.
How did you feel about his murder?
How do I feel about his murder?
Yeah.
Well, I think a quote by a great author sums up the sentiment of millions of Americans around the world, and that is, some cause happiness wherever they go, others when they go. And I think that's a sentiment that is palpable amongst many Americans around the world due to the hate and vitriol and bile that Charlie Kirk sowed. So I think there was a pastor
just to be clear, unless I misheard you, then you are happy he died.
No, I don't think as far as happiness is an emotion that
you literally just read me a quote which implies you're happy. You talked about some people's death bring happiness.
The purpose of the quote was to say that there are some people who have caused harm and death and turmoil to other groups of people, such as Charlie Kirk, whether it's Black people, whether it's, trans people.
No, I heard the quote. But just to be clear, you said that the quote ends in that their death brings happiness, but you've denied that you were happy. But when you tell me a quote
I don't disagree.
When you tell me a quote like that, I presume from that quote you're implying that actually you are happy he died because he deserved it. He had it coming.
No, not at all. I don't think those are ever words that I've ever mentioned verbatim ever. I think there is a sentiment that when someone who lives their life in evil and wickedness, according to the scripture, the power of life and death is in your tongue. And the hate and the vile and the venom that he spewed, I don't know what to tell you. As the scripture says, as he professed, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. I think his focus should have been on a community that, clearly is in problem. That I find it interesting that there's more scrutiny on people who may make memes that they've done of George Floyd and other Black victims than on the white male youth that did this tragedy, as some would call it.
Why would you be offended about the memes to people like George Floyd, which I found contemptible at the time, if they're the same ones that you're talking about? Why would you profess to be offended by those if you're quite happy to do the same kind of thing yourself?
I think the point that I'm making by the means that I'm putting out, which clearly has caused outrage and triggering, I find it a bit hypocritical that the people for years who said fuck your feelings are now overwhelmed with feelings at the moment. But the point that I was making was to point out the hypocrisy that the right has on a variety and myriad of issues, as we just saw with Pam Bondi on the freedom of speech. I think the issue is that they have scapegoated people like Pam Bondi for what is the crime of Donald Trump. The same thing they did with Anthony Fauci. We saw this when it came to the Second Amendment. They banned bump stock ban. They had a bump stock ban under Donald Trump while they were fear-mongering about Biden take away your guns. But as we saw, there was no outrage, there was no protest, and we come to find out that it was unconstitutional. So I think this hypocrisy is ubiquitous within the right, and I think my memes expose that hypocrisy.
And what about your own personal humanity? I mean, hashtagging his widow in a mocked-up promotion poster of Kirk and Twerk at Neck of the Woods. How do you justify targeting? Hang on. How do you justify targeting his widow?
I think that's a bit disingenuous to use such hyperbolic language as targeting. I think it's more of a strategic plan of attack to get the message out to more people. When we saw Erica Kirk, she had a moment to speak for unity within the country, left and right, and she chose to fundraise. She then chose to use the scripture and talk, very nicely of her, past husband. And I understand that. But by that same token, there are people who were absolutely harmed by the rhetoric that Charlie Kirk put out. And that rhetoric actually codified in many cases in many states. So I think it's abhorrent and actually perverse to expect people who are harmed by his rhetoric, harmed by someone who had anti-black, anyone who wasn't white and Christian in his perspective. I think it's perverse to try and criticize those people or try and make them seem as if they're the bad guys when that's
but you see, funny enough, I can look at what you've done and I can see somebody who is abhorrent and despicable and actually evil. Actually, the stuff when you target someone's widow as she grieves.
Once again, I disagree with the word targeting.
No. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me personally. My view of what you've done. I don't care about your motivation in terms of other people's inappropriate memes, many of which I may well agree with you about. But that doesn't mean that I then go and do it myself or worse, because that makes me even more inhuman and abhorrent, and by your definition,
I disagree. I think
evil. I know you disagree. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you.
When it comes to Republicans, when it comes to conservatives,
I know. Hang on.
They have to see.
I've let you have your say.
I think I'm a mirror.
I've let you have your
what
say.
They have shown.
I'll let you have your say.
And if they don't like what they see, then they should actually detour from their wicked path.
I'm using your own justification to tell you what I think of you and what you've done. All right? That's my free speech at work. Let me bring in Gillian Michaels.
Agree.
I mean, Gillian, look. I saw Brian there nodding to some of what he was hearing there, not all, to be clear, but nodding to some of it about the hypocrisy which Lucas claims he is exposing with this stuff. What is your view of what he's said?
I find this exceptionally sad because, Lucas, you talk about how hurt you were and how offended you were by such despicable things, and then you became the thing that you found the most repulsive, which is alarming. And as I mentioned, deeply saddening. I would be more than happy to litigate some of Charlie's positions for you. I abjectly.
I don't think I need any litigation from a woman who tried to downplay slavery, who tried to all lives matter slavery after she purchased a black child. That's what I would argue. I don't think you need to as far as litigate anything.
Would you like to discuss it?
Okay.
Because the reality of the situation is that what I gave you, whether you like it or not, is a fact from the 1860 census. And the point is not to downplay slavery.
It is actually a bastardization of actual history. What you cited was inaccurate. You can actually look it up. I don't know if you did. I doubt you do your due diligence. You clearly did not, because in that study that you're citing, in the study that I'm discussing it right now, in the study that you're citing, it takes into account not only the slaves, it takes into account the northern states and the southern states. So to try and implement or to say this all lives matter when it comes to slavery, which is abhorrent and in extreme contradiction to American history, especially in this country as chattel slavery as Black Americans, is abhorrent and perverse, especially you, who is the mother of a Black child, who she purchased.
Right.
Other people
is my turn to talk?
You purchased.
Is it?
By all means.
How did I? Okay, well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by purchase. She's adopted, and it is illegal to purchase a child.
Did you pay to get that child?
No, I paid the adoption agency.
It was
absolutely
free.
Study.
It was absolutely. Okay,
I paid the adoption agency Like you
So then there
pay
is
to
a process
adopt a
of payment.
child
I
to
believe
an
that
American
other people adopt. You
adoption
purchase.
agency. Okay, you're wrong, and that's defamation.
I'm literally
and it's
right
an
as you're
absolute
saying
lie,
that you
and
pay
it's-
to an adoption
you're
agency.
You're literally wrong, and it's this
I'm
kind
literally
of hateful.
correct.
You know what you are. You know what you are,
I
Lucas.
think what's hateful is you downplaying
hang on. Let me
slavery.
jump in
That's
here.
what I think is
Let me
hateful.
jump in
I
here,
didn't actually
Lucas.
downplay
Let me jump in
slavery.
here, Lucas.
That's
it seems to
literally
me
what you did.
Seems to me, Lucas, you've decided to be just as offensive as you want to be. You're now attacking people who adopt children, which is one of the most selfless things that any human being could do, actually.
This is literally what
But
the
you-
right did to Dave Rubin, is
Fine,
it not?
Fine, but what you're doing is just trying to be as offensive as possible whilst masquerading under this umbrella of, well, everybody else is offensive, so that's why I'm doing it, to expose
Not
all
at
the
all, and I
hypocrisy.
think if that's
But
what I'm
Gillian
giving
is
off, I
right.
apologize
Gillian is
sincerely.
right.
What
that
I'm
actually
merely trying to
you
do
have descended.
is create
you
a
have,
better
the way
world.
you've
What
just
I'm
gone
trying to
after
do is to
Gillian.
unify
You know what,
people.
Lucas?
The
Stop
only way we
talking.
can unify people
Stop
is for
talking.
people to understand the
Stop
harms that they've
talking.
done.
You have targeted Gillian for adopting a child. That is despicable. Let me bring in
I
Riley
have
Gaines.
targeted Jillian for adopting a black child after she downplayed slavery, which
Right.
I think is
Fine.
contradictory.
You
Actually,
attacked
I
her for adopting a
adopted
child.
I mean, let's not
14 years
misconstrue
ago.
my words that I'm
So-
saying.
Oh, I heard your words. Let me
Yeah,
bring in.
I
Let
did
me
too,
bring in.
Lucas.
Let me bring in Riley.
You're
Riley.
misinterpreting
Let me
that.
bring in Riley Gaines here.
Sure, buddy.
Riley, you've been waiting patiently.
Guys, listen. I don't even need to overcomplicate this one because everybody watching that panel could see exactly what was happening. Would I personally have gone as far as Amazing Lucas did? Probably not unless somebody pushed me to that point. But here's the part that completely exposes the hypocrisy. Amazing Lucas gave Charlie Kirk the exact same energy Charlie Kirk has spent years giving other people. That's it. Charlie Kirk built an audience mocking George Floyd, joking about Black Death, making inflammatory comments, laughing at tragedies, and constantly pushing outrage content whenever the victims were people he politically disagreed with. The moment somebody flipped that same energy back onto him, suddenly the panel acted like they had witnessed the most outrageous thing imaginable. The meltdown was instant. And Piers Morgan especially was unbelievable in this clip because instead of actually addressing the hypocrisy being pointed out, he immediately pivoted into policing tone and acting morally outraged. But where was that outrage before? Where was it when Charlie Kirk was making memes and jokes about dead people for years? Where was the outrage when right-wing influencers mocked tragedies involving Black Americans, Palestinians, or political opponents? Nobody on that panel actually disproved what Amazing Lucas was saying. Nobody challenged the larger point. They just attacked how he said it because they knew the core argument hit too close to home. That's why the entire conversation became so uncomfortable. What also stood out to me was how quickly they tried to play victim after spending years defending some of the harshest rhetoric imaginable. The right has built an entire online culture around shock humor, cruelty, humiliation, and owning opponents. They cheer it on when it targets the left. They monetize it. They repost it. But the second someone from the other side responds with the same energy, now suddenly everybody wants civility and respect. That inconsistency is exactly why people are frustrated. You cannot normalize toxic political behavior for years and then act shocked when the atmosphere you helped create eventually turns back around on you. And honestly, that's why this clip exploded the way it did. Not because Amazing Lucas said something nobody had ever heard before, but because he forced these people to confront their own standards in real time. They wanted accountability to apply only one way. They wanted outrage only when it benefited their side. And the second that contradiction got exposed publicly, the entire panel lost control of the conversation. Whether people agree with Lucas or not, the reaction from Piers Morgan and the others revealed something important. A lot of these media personalities are completely comfortable with inflammatory rhetoric right up until the moment it affects them personally. At the end of the day, this entire situation really comes down to consistency. If you are going to condemn this kind of rhetoric, then condemn it across the board. Don't suddenly discover morality only when your side becomes the target. Because people are tired of watching standards change depending on whose team is involved. That's why clips like this resonate so strongly online. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Whether you agree or disagree, I genuinely want to hear your perspective. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.